Okay. Good morning. So, DeftFix is the new 6-axis system, which is available here. And the idea of this pre-workshop, sort of webinar rather, is to introduce you all to the hardware and run through the software for once. Usually to do a DeftFix workshop, we take 2 days. So with doing this before, hopefully we should be able to save some time. We will be doing the same thing again in the actual workshop, but we should be able to save some time and get you to do more during the workshop than just listen to a lecture. So we start off with the hardware part of it, and then Divya will take us through the software. So essentially, this is a 6-axis system like most other 6-axis systems, where we have 2 rings. These rings are connected by 6 struts, which are in a V or W configuration. The struts are connected to the ring by connectors, which are, as you see here, in blue. And then there are some additional components marked in yellow, known as C-plates, which can raise or lower the level of fixation. So this is the sort of list of hardware that is there. It's the first 3 which are important: the Y connectors, the C-plate, and the strut. We will go through how we connect the Y connectors to the rings. There are some differences between the steel rings and the alloy rings which Pixar now makes, and something related to the hardware where you have to measure the length of the struts and count the connector positions. So these are known as Y connectors. Those of you who have used the Litos hexapod will remember these are similar connectors. The connectors, if you notice, are not straight in line with the balls are not straight in line with the connectors. They are slightly angled, and depending on how you place it, the angle can come once this way or this way. There are 2 surfaces to it. One is a flat surface, which you see here, and the other has a flange, which is the opposite side, and that's to fix it well. Now, there are 2 types of Y connectors that you will see. They are either steel connectors, or they will be black colored connectors. Some connectors, those steel, will have a black dot on them. The black connectors and the connectors with a dot on them are connectors which are made to accommodate the increased width of the alloy ring, and they cannot be used on the steel ring. So if you're using steel rings, then you have to use steel connectors. C-plates, as the name implies, they are a C-shaped component. Similar to the Y connectors, there is a flange on one end, and both ends have holes as marked with the yellow arrows. One of these is threaded to fix a bolt, and the other is a larger diameter. The bolt doesn't fix onto this, but the bolt passes onto this to hold a Y connector. You'll see in a moment how that happens. Similar to the steel and black Y connectors. The C plates are also, there are specific C plates meant for use with the alloy connectors, which you see here. These are the struts of the DeftFix system. There are 3 sizes of struts. On top is the small, then is the medium, and then is the large. Most commonly, what we use is
registration.
Those of you who are not, I mean, just keep your mics muted, please. Normally, most often, the strut that comes into use is the medium strut. Small patients in the foot, you may need to use the small strut, and in some situations, you will need to use the large strut, but most common is the medium. Now, attaching the Y connector to the ring, just like with other systems that we have used before, you can put it on the lower surface of the ring, or you can put it on the upper surface of the ring, but you should use it with the flanged surface on the ring and not on the plain surface on the ring. Otherwise, when you tighten it, you won't get the stability. So you pass a bolt, tighten that, and you have to tighten it with a spanner. These are all 10-number components, so you use a 10-number spanner, and it may twist a little this side, that side, but the flange will prevent any gross movement. So whether you use it on the lower surface or whether you use it on the upper surface, it is more or less in line with the ring. So it doesn't really matter which way you have to, which way you put it. Sometimes it's difficult to put it one way, then you can turn it around and put it the other way. The C plate, as I said, has a flange. So the flanged surface comes on the ring. The threaded hole accepts a 10-number bolt. And on the upper surface, you can put a Y connector. Again, remember, once you finish this hand tightening, it has to be tightened by a spanner. Otherwise, you will end up with trouble during the distraction. So this has to be good and tight on both the connections. So the C plate can be put above the ring. It can be put below the ring. So basically what it does is raise the level of fixation. But if you look at it from the side, they are both the same distance from each other. You can also put it below the ring, and therefore you with this you can reduce the distance between the rings. Black Y connectors and C plates should not be used on steel rings. They can only be used on alloy rings. So alloy rings, as I showed you before, either these black connectors or connectors with a black dot on them. These rings are slightly broader. Since they are made of alloy, they are slightly broader, slightly thicker. So if you try to use a regular one, you will not be able to fit a bolt because the holes don't match perfectly. So once again, difference in the Y connectors and the C plates, black or ones with a black dot are to be used with the alloy ring. Using this system, you can, in situations where your rings are too close to each other or too far away from each other, you can increase or decrease the distance between the rings essentially. And that is why I said that more often than not, you can use just the medium strut for most cases. So this is a medium strut. It has two sort of ball joints on either end to fix on the Y connectors. One side of it, the ball is mobile, the other side it's not. You will see one scale marked #B on that with increments of, with numbers incrementing at 4. That can be loosened and the strut length acutely increased, as in this case by about 52 millimeters. This is equivalent to the fast strut action of other systems. So the Ortho SUV has a fast strut, TSF has a fast strut. So now here, this has been lengthened by 28 millimeters. Inside, there is another, the sliding one has got another scale. And there is a long line and a number to the right of it. So this number refers, this line refers to 120. 125 is this line. So remember the number to the right of the long line. So this strut is now at 120 millimeters. All the measurements are in millimeters. One of these balls on the bottom is mobile. The other one is immobile. It doesn't rotate. This is a locking nut. When you tighten it like this, it's not easy to do movement of the threaded portion. So before movement is done, it needs to be loosened. You see this mark on that, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and back to 0. So each turn of this, you can feel a click. I'm not able to show you that on the video, but you'll be able to see it on the workshop. So it clicks into position. So the patient can feel that click. And increasing and decreasing, also the direction is marked. Right? So you notice as I move this, the thread is being pushed out. As I move it in the reverse, the thread is being pulled in. You can also see this on the thread, which we'll show you in a moment. So as I move it in the positive direction, you can see the scale is going up. As I move it in the reverse direction, the scale is going down. That small wire you see over there is a lock. It is to prevent accidental disengagement of this from the ball joint. So there's a small groove over there. You pass the vertical portion of the wire through that and then snap this onto the neck of the joint. It is pretty secure, very simple method, but works well. So the ball joint snaps in there. If you don't have the wire, you can easily disengage it. Once you put in the locking wire, and lock it in, very difficult, if not impossible, unless your strut is at a very, very severe angle to the ball joint. Now, whenever you do this acute fast track lengthening, you should always tighten this, tighten it firmly with the spanner, not absolutely solid. If you do it too tight, you will damage the teeth that you see over here. It just needs to be tightened enough that it will not move. As you can see now, this one, hash B, has been tightened at 30 millimeters. We'll come to this hash B in a bit. Just like with our previous system, you can have strut numbers, and the arrows on the strut numbers also can be utilized. I'll show you how. So this gives, they are all color coded. So each strut has a particular color, and depending on how you put that, you will get, you can denote the direction also. So here, this is for strut number 1. If I put it one way, the arrow will be pointing, earlier was pointing to the right or the left, depending on how you turn this. And then you can just push it in, it will clip on. So this is also a visual aid for the patient as to which direction that particular strut has to be turned. Now we come to attaching the connectors. In most of these systems, there is one zero or the first connector. So here, the first connector can be put anywhere on the front, even up to here actually. This is the front while the patient is facing you, right? So the first connector can be put anywhere on the front. On the upper ring, we call the upper ring is the fixed ring, and the lower or the distal ring is the mobile ring, because that's how it will happen. Whatever is attached to the central portion of the body is going to remain fixed. Whatever is distal is going to be the moving ring. So whatever is on the front, more or less in line with the AP axis of the bone or the segment. So here I would call this hole as the zero hole. In this case, this is a steel ring. This is the zero hole. And we have fixed the Y connector to the top of the ring. Now in steel rings, unlike in the alloy rings, because of the flange, there is a hole that is sort of missing. So when we count, we start from 0. This is hole number 1, and this is hole number 2. So this connector is connected to the upper ring at hole number 2. So that's the AP axis. And we have connected the first one to hole number 2. and all the counting with the patient facing you is you count to the right side. So you count the number of holes, and usually you want to keep the 3 Y connectors equidistant from each other. It doesn't have to be perfect. If one of the holes is taken up by a wire fixation bolt or something, you can go a little behind or a little forward. But generally, try to keep them equidistant. So now you see, we have, this is hole number 1, 2, 3. So the number of holes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So somewhere between 12 and 13 in this 160 mm ring. Essentially, you need to get them equidistant. Now, on the distal ring, which you can see back here, the connectors that are put in are put sort of midway between the 2 connectors here. So you see the distance between these 2, and somewhere in the middle of that, the connector has been connected to the lower ring. Same thing for this. So if you look at this from the top, you will have 6 connectors connected more or less equidistant from each other, 3 on the proximal ring and 3 on the distal ring. Once you have connected those 6 connectors, we connect the struts. Now here these struts are already connected, but usually we start from strut number 1, and notice that the threaded portion, which is going to do the distraction, is always connected to the top. Okay, you don't connect it below. The threaded portion should always go on top. So you snap this on, upper end, lower end. So here's a more close-up view, and those of you who have used the hexapod, as I said, will find that this is a much easier way of connecting and disconnecting the struts. So now we come to the strut numbers. We said that the proximal ring is the fixed ring, the distal is the mobile ring. The strut number 1 has to be on the front, going from mobile to the fixed, which is up here, and going from left to right. So this is strut number 1. Even if this had been connected, somewhere here, this would still be strut number 1. Why? Because it's going from the mobile to the fixed, from below to up, and from left to right. Only thing that would have changed would be the number, that is the number of holes of the connector. And then as we talk about the counting, this is standard to the right. Everything is to the right. So this is after strut number 1, this is strut number 2. It is still connected with the threaded portion above. You go further right, strut number 3. Then strut number 4. Then strut number 5. Here you see strut number 5 and 6 are connected to a C plate. This is number 6. And we are back to strut number 1. So in terms of counting holes, you put the first one and then keep counting towards the right. Forget about clockwise, anti-clockwise. The way to think about it is patient is facing me and I'm counting to the right. Now, how to count the holes? I told you the first hole is the one on the front. Now, you may decide that no, I think this is on the front. A couple of holes here and there actually doesn't make too much of a difference. So you mark the first strut, the first 0 hole, and then count from there. So this is hole number 7, right? Where strut number 1 and 2 are connected. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So connector 2 is hole number 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, etc. So you will get the numbers for all of this. So in the software asks you where the struts are connected. And if you look at it now, you will find that strut number 1 and strut number 2 are on the fixed ring and on hole number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So when you enter, we will show you that later in the software. When you enter it, strut 1 on the fixed ring is connected to hole number 7. Strut 2 on the fixed string is also connected to hole number 7. And similarly onward. So this strut is 3. So 3 and 4 are connected on the upper ring at a particular hole. So all of this you have to measure. Now when you come to the lower ring, basically you have to extrapolate this 0 hole onto the lower ring. Again, a little bit of difference in terms of one hole here and there does not matter. So according to us, that is the corresponding hole, the one which has the pin. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Whatever that count is. Then from there, further you will count. So now this was strut number 1. This is strut number 2, 3. Strut number 4 and 5 are connected on the lower ring at this particular hole, whatever that count is. And then accordingly you will go on. So let's see again one. That hole corresponding hole number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I missed it again. But you get the point. So you count around again. Remember, count to the right and note down these numbers, which are the struts which are connected. And again, from there to the last connector. Now there is a difference between the steel ring and the alloy ring. As I said, the alloy ring has got a sort of half cut, no flange. So there are no holes missing. So here we count across. But in the stainless steel ring, as I pointed out earlier, there is a flange where a hole is missing. So that area should be counted as one hole. So this will be 1. And therefore the hole next to it will be 2. That connector is not on hole number 1, it's on hole number 2. If we take the bolt as the 0 hole. Again, to underline the importance of the 0 hole, this is where I'm saying it is. But if you say it's here or it's here, I wouldn't bother much about that. It doesn't make any difference. Of course, don't try to say that this is 0. It should be somewhere on the front and more or less aligned with the front of the bore. Then is matching the 0 hole on the fixed ring to the 0 hole on the bottom ring, right? So this one would be the 0 hole for the bottom ring, as I would estimate. But if you say that this is the 0, or if you say that this is the 0, okay, I wouldn't fight about it. But generally, looking at it from the front, you should say in a vertical line to each other is what it should be. Now, when you're doing the X-rays, we put on Xray markers. In this case, since we are photographing a model, we have drawn a line which is 100 mm. This is in the software, this is called a scaling object. And this is to give us the magnification. This is on the film. So the software knows that, okay, for this practically there is no magnification. And the Xray markers have got different diameters of wires. Like you'll see, this is a thin, thin, and thin. That's number 1. This is a thick, thick, and thick, which is number 6. This is a thin, thick, thick. You'll notice the importance of this when we come to the software. So before we do the X-ray, we place these magnification markers on the thicker part of the strut so that it helps us to identify the struts on the X-ray. In the workshop, when you photograph the model, you will take one picture in the AP direction. Notice that the posterior aspect of the condyles are in line. We have placed that magnification marker, and that magnification marker should always come on in the picture. Or when you're doing an X-ray, it should always be seen. All the 6 struts should be seen and the magnification marker should be seen. Usually we say the magnification marker should be at least 10 centimeters, 100 millimeters. Smaller than that, there is a chance for errors. If you do a 100 millimeter wire, the chance of errors is minimal. Now, when you're photographing it, the distance between the camera and the model and the floor is the source to film distance. When you take an X-ray, the distance between the X-ray tube and the film is the source to film distance. Usually, the source to film distance will be a meter. If in most standard radiography rooms, the tube is kept at 1 meter from the table. So you take an AP picture like this, and then somebody hold it in a lateral position. A little bit this way, that way is okay, but you shouldn't have a gross. So you need 2 X-rays which are relatively speaking orthogonal to each other. Up to about 20 degrees this way, that way, the software can accommodate. Okay. And again, measure that source to film distance. Sometimes there will be occasions when this source to film distance may be different for the AP and the lateral. Sometimes it may be the same. Now, all of these measurements, in the workshop also you will get this, and actually you should, we also use this when we are using it clinically. That is, all the numbers that we just talked about, you need to write down on a piece of paper before you go to the software. Now, what are the numbers we looked at here? We got the source to film distance. That is, in the AP, it is 1100 millimeters. On the lateral, it is 1150 millimeters. This is the distance, source to film. But when we're doing an X-ray, it will be the distance between the X-ray tube and the film. Length of scaling object in millimeters on both the AP and lateral, it was 100 millimeters. Then the strut position on the ring. I showed you, that is all the struts on the fixed and the mobile rings are marked in red here. So strut 1 and strut 2 are both connected to the same ring. That is at hole number 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 when you count. Okay. Strut number 3 and strut number 4 on the fixed ring. That is strut number 3 and strut number 4 here. They are connected at hole number 23. And strut number 5 and strut number 6 are connected at hole number 39. The difference here is that strut number 5 and 6 are connected with a C plate. And where is the direction of the C plate? It is pointing down. So we mark that, and this we will enter into the software. On the mobile ring, strut number 2 and 3 here are connected on hole number 13. So if we take this as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have taken probably this as 0. So this is strut number 13. Hole number 13. Strut number 2 and 3 are connected. Then hole number 29. That is strut number 4 and 5 are connected, and strut number 6 and 1 are connected to hole number 44. So we have told the software, we are going to tell the software where the struts are connected, and then we are going to tell the software what the length of the struts are. Now, each of the struts you need to measure. And you need to tell it whether it's a large strut, medium strut, or a small strut. Here you can see strut number 1 is a large strut, but all the others are medium struts. And you'll notice two columns, hash A and hash B. Hash B is obvious, it's written over here. So you have to read off from there what is hash B and what is hash A. So this hash A on this illustration will probably be somewhere around 137 or so, and hash B on this illustration is 24 and 26. Okay. So similarly, for each of the struts, hash A, hash B has to be written down. This is the sum total of the data that you need to collect. You don't need to measure what is the deformity, nothing. Just the strut length and where are the struts connected. And with this piece of paper, we will then go on to the software and enter all of this into the software. Oh, one more thing I forgot was, what is the size of the ring and what kind of a ring is it? So is it a full ring, half ring, 5/8? And what is the size in millimeters? What about the distal ring, whether it's a half ring, full ring, or a foot ring? For foot corrections, there are specific foot rings which are available. So if it's a foot ring, then you have to mention that it's a foot ring and what is the diameter of that. That comes up in the selection. Now remember that these numbers relate to Pitker ring because different manufacturers may have different number of holes in the ring. So this software will only work with Pitker rings or something which is absolutely identical. If you've got rings which are different, you might have trouble with that. Also, remember what we are showing you in the workshop is two rings with 2 points of fixation. This is for ease of use. We want to get the workshop done quickly, but this does not change the basic principle of Ilizarov of stability. So if you've got a mid-shaft deformity, effectively you will need a 4-ring construct. If you've got a proximal or distal, then yes, you can use a 3-ring construct, but the metaphyseal, whichever ring is at the metaphysis, will require multiple levels of fixation with drop wires, etc. Some people may use 2 rings in a small segment also. What you have to remember that there is no difference between the hinge frame that you use and a 6-axis, except that between the 2 fragments, that is these 2, ring number 2 and 3, instead of a hinge, you can put a 6-axis. So don't go with what we show you in the workshop in terms of stability. That is very, very important. We see frequently people thinking that, okay, because in the workshop we showed just 2 rings and 4 pins, you can do that in real life. No, you cannot, especially in adult patients. So after this, we'll take a short question and answer break, and then we'll go on to the software where we'll show you how to log in, how to create a new case, import the Xrays, enter all the data which we just collected, mark the struts in the software, and then allow the software to do an error check. Then we tell the software, you know, what exactly, how much you want to correct, what deformity you want to correct, what weight you want to correct it, and the software then gives you the schedule, right? So now I will open to questions.
Dr. Mangal?
Yes.
Sir, actually in the chart you have shown that where we place our data, you have mentioned about the half ring. You have not mentioned about the 5/8 ring.
Sorry, that should be 5/8 ring. It will come. All those will come in that. So okay. Whether it's a half ring or a 5/8 ring, you have to mention it over there. वो उसमें typographical error होगा.
No problem.
When you come to the software, you will see that. So any questions about the hardware?
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
So is it permitted to affix the struts onto an extension plate or any sort of thing which is off the principal frame? Anything that is away from the...
No, it has to be on the ring, either above the ring or below the ring, using a C plate, because essentially the software is looking for a round shape of a particular diameter. So if you put one strut off on an extension, that will not give you accurate correction. So there's no reason why you should need to put that. For example, if your holes are taken up by some wire fixation bolt or something, you can go one hole this way, one hole that way. That is always possible. So we've done, I think, about 35, 40 cases, including models actually. Not had an occasion to put it on a extension.
I was thinking of a situation where maybe there's a severe knee contracture and then the rings are closely spaced. You won't want to put a very large diameter ring as well. So, in such a situation, you may need an extension like a plate or a...
Let me show you something. Wait. So what you are saying is you've got a severe flexion deformity. And then you have rings which you place like this.
Yes, sir.
And the rings come close to each other, right?
Yes,
So there
sir.
are two things. There are two things that you can do for that. One is don't put the rings like that. Put the rings like this. So they are not as angled to each other. They may not be perpendicular to the bone. Ultimately, when your deformity corrects, you will have rings which are not parallel to each other. That's fine. You have, but you will have corrected the deformity, and then you can use, hinges or coupled washers, whatever. That's one thing. Second, as I pointed out, here you can use a C-clamp, and here also you can use a C-clamp. So effectively, you have increased the distance from this to this. And third, which we will show you in the workshop, but it's a little difficult to show right now, is there is a way, if you look at the ring, I told you that you should have one Y connector here, one Y connector here, and another Y connector here. But if you find that things are getting too close, you can split up the Y connectors. So one strut goes on this and the other strut goes on this. So this is like a little bit of a advanced technique. So using all of these methods, really there should be no requirement to put it off a thing. So when you're doing, we actually just day before we did a flexion deformity and we've used this. So you don't go perpendicular so that your rings are not close to each other. You go a little like this so that I will get more space between my rings.
So good afternoon, sir. Can you just elaborate?
Yes,
how is the struts name 1, 2, 3, 4? Just elaborate. I didn't get that point.
How the
Struts are numbered.
numbered. Okay, I'll just show you. Let me share my screen again. So when you connect the strut, whatever is from the, whichever strut is on the frontmost strut, which goes from the mobile ring, that is the distal ring, to the fixed ring and goes to the right. See, this one is also on the front. The one in red. It's also on the front. It's going from the mobile to the fixed ring, but it's going to the left. So the one that goes from mobile to fixed and to the right with the patient facing you is strut number 1. Whatever is to the right of that is strut number 2. To the right of that again is strut number 3. Right of that again, 4. Got it?
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Bola.
Good morning, sir. Can we get the recorded this thing as well so that we can repeat at our places?
You will get, once we finish the meeting, then the recording will be done and I'll send a link to everybody.
Thank you.
All right. So I think now that's the hardware. We'll have Divya showing us the software as the next. Divya.
So,
You can share your screen. As many of you all know, Divya is a colleague of mine, works with me here at Mumbai, and has been equally involved and responsible for the development and ironing out all the faults or the issues that came up. Now, this whole hardware and the software has been made in India, right? Of course, the hardware has got many similarities with other systems that we have used, and we have amalgamated all of those. But that's the situation with any system that you see. They've all picked and chosen from other systems. Litos was from Germany, was the first one, and many of the ones that have come after it have taken these ideas of the ball joint, double-threaded struts, etc., from Litos. But the software is completely developed by a company called AlgoSurge, a couple of ex-IIT graduates, and they worked really hard. And of course, every time issues come up, we've been ironing it out. Now, I think for practical purposes, it works perfectly without any issues. So Divya, you can take over from this thing, the recording of the sorry, not the recording, the numbers that we wrote, and show them how to log in, and then we'll go back. All yours.
so these were the numbers we need to note down. We can share this template with you. You can print it out for yourself and get these numbers written down clearly. So the parameters which you need to note down from the X-ray room are the source to film distance for the AP and the lateral. All measurements are in millimeters. So
Divya, one sec. Are you using your
no, sir.
this thing?
No.
Just try and use that. See if that gives you a better sound, because there's a little bit of echo with Bluetooth. See if you can connect to the, or if someone has a wired one, you can use that, because we want to record this also, na? So
Yeah.
that way, then the audio will be good.
Give me a moment. We need to pair it. Is it better now? So is it better now?
Yeah, better.
Yes, better.
Yes, sir, it is better.
Okay. So we need to note down these numbers from the X-ray room. That's the source to film distance. So source to film is where the beam, X-ray beam is taken, and if where the film is kept, not if the film is kept in the bucky somewhere inside, not that. So where the leg of the patient is placed, that's where the film should be placed, and that's the distance we measure. For the workshop, this workshop, we are using the photographs of the model. So in the previous slides, we have noted down how to take those measurements. So again, whatever ring is used, mark your ring, note down the size of the ring. Again, insisting on using the Pitker rings because the number of holes is fixed, and that's how the software calculates the position of the struts and the Y connectors when it's cross-checking for errors. All the measurements have been noted down. Then we go ahead with the software. You need to use Chrome or web browser to log in. The site is deftfix.com. And once you come onto the login site, you'll be asked to register. For the workshop, you will be given some IDs and login passwords. So once you have logged in, you come onto this screen. The first screen shows the software manual, and all the details what we have shown you are also written down there. You can always go back and cross-check for any measurements or other points you need to cross-verify. You can download this and keep it. Also, it is always available online as well. And as and when any changes are made, this software will be updated. And once you have gone ahead, you can click onto this button, go to software, and we come to the home screen. Home screen is showing two buttons there, My Cases and Shared Cases. One can share cases with others if there is some issue or some point where someone wants some clarification. We will give you our ID for sharing the cases. Once you are ready to go ahead, you click on this button on the right with the plus mark and add a new case. And that's where the pencil mark is shown. We click there and you can edit the demographics. So here we add the name, age, and date, what you want to. And in the description box, there you can add any description for the case. Once you're ready, click on Open the case. And in this screen now, we need to upload X-rays or images. So click on Upload AP X-ray. It will take you to your.
Thoda sa loud, Divya.
It will take you to the Explorer window on the Mac. Now this is the Finder window. So navigate to where you have saved those X-rays. They have to be JPEG images. Click on the AP and add Open. So this will upload the AP image, then add your lateral image. And once both the images are uploaded, we add the imaging parameters, what we have noted down earlier. So the AP source film distance in millimeters. So that was 1100. Then the AP scale, which is 100 millimeters. Then on the lateral source film distance, 1150. And lateral scale as 100. So once we have added these four, then you can go ahead and place these. This yellow marker is the marker or dumbbell for using for the magnification scale. The red marker is for the beam center. We'll come to that. So first place the yellow dumbbell perfectly on the scale. Always zoom in and fine tune the placement to minimize any errors. The more zoomed in you work on the screen, the lesser is the error because of the magnification. And to drag the picture, one needs to right click and then drag. Now, beam center, the crosshairs for the X-ray beam meet. So in the picture taken here is the focus of the picture of the lens was in the center at the osteotomy. And this arrow can be moved to rotate the picture. If you have taken a kite view or you've got a diagonal image, you can straighten up in the software itself by rotating this arrow and keeping it pointing upwards. Do the same thing on the lateral. This central circle is used to move the dumbbell as the whole. The blue points are used to fine tune and place the end. Then place the beam center again on the lateral. The image here is straight, so I'm not going to rotate it. Once all these and placements are done, then the upper arrow there turns green, and then you can go forward to the next step. The software gives these pointers time to time, make sure that no errors are there. In this next screen is where we need to add the frame parameters. First thing will be the type of the ring. So click on the drop down button and different types of rings which are supported will show up. Choose the ring which you have used. So full ring here and diameter is 160 mm. So with this, once we have chosen this, the software now knows, okay, what type of ring is there and what are the number of holes which are expected to be on that particular ring. As we are entering, all these exclamation mark errors go away. Only when all the exclamation marks are taken away, you will be able to move forward. So now we put the strut positions, the Y connector holes, which we have noted down. So 7, then 44. You can move from one to the other by pressing tab. So by default, the C extension is not selected as not applied. So since we have not applied any C plates in these connectors, we are not choosing that. Now S5, 39. Now here we have used a C plate on the fixed ring for S5 and S6, and the C plate is facing down. So you click on not applicable button and it toggles between up, down, and not applicable. So we have, because it's facing down, now we have selected down, press tab. Again for S6, same thing, same hole, 39, and a C plate facing down. Initially, when we are entering, please make sure you have entered everything correctly, because this is how the software is going to cross verify for any errors. So now we go on to the strut length and the type. So we have used only one large strut, which is S1. The button again toggles between small, medium, and large. By default, medium is selected. So we bring it to what we have used, large, and enter the hash A and hash B. So 156 and 46. 111, 44, 118, 28, add one value and press tab, and then it goes to the next one. 140 and 2. There may be occasions when the numbers are in between and then someone wants to add a decimal number. So decimal number is not accepted by the software. So then it will show an error. Whatever is the next round figure, you can use that. Again, for hash B, all the numbers have to be even numbers. No odd numbers are accepted. Once all the errors are taken care, now the arrow on the top has turned green. We can move on to the next step. So this is a step where we need to mark and tell the software how the struts are placed on the ring. So on both AP and lateral, we need to draw the struts. In the photograph here, we are able to see those Xray markers much more clearly and the numbers written there. But when we are using an Xray, then the Xray markers have these 3 lines, the metal markers which are there. So it's a combination of thickness, what we need to see. The 3 thin lines means strut number 1. It's color coded. So blue is strut 1. Each strut has the marker has 2 ends, the fixed and the mobile. So once you hover over the circle, it shows you whether it's a fixed end or mobile end. Don't place them wrongly. Fixed end has that hat on the top. Mobile end is just a circle. Left click on that and drag. And you place it well centered on the strut. So pointing to strut number 1, 3 thin lines. We can cross check on the codes on the left again. And different combinations of those. That is pointing to the 3 thin lines. Drag it with the left button. Place it well centered on the strut. Zoom in and make it much more accurate. And then go ahead and move on to the next one. So for this workshop, right now, we are going to be marking them all first. And then zooming in together. And so you can work either ways. Keep zooming in and fine tuning each strut separately. Or mark them all first and then zoom in and correct them. Now here, the strut 4 is some part is hidden behind the bone because this is a photograph. But on the Xray, you'll be able to see that through the
bone. So marking them all different codes, color codes, then zoom in. So one of those circles will match depending on what is the magnification of the X-ray. So if nothing is matching, we can just get it concentric on the circle, and the line attaching those two circles should be more or less be in the center of the remaining strut. So if you can't see a joint or a circle, then like here in this case, strut number 3. So right click on that circle, it turns into an arrow, and then place it centric on the strut. So giving information is important, not giving wrong information to the software. So there again, so we'll use
your voice is cracking sometimes.
Placing those arrows again, more.
No, your connection is a little problematic.
Go back to.
So basically, what he's saying is wrong information is worse than no information. You should give proper information to the software. Where you can't see the ball, don't mark the ball. Just leave it as an arrow by right clicking. Even if you just show the software the lie of the strut, that should be okay.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
So going ahead with that, so not giving wrong information and putting those arrows in place where you're not able to see it clearly. You may choose not to mark a particular strut if it is not visible or clear to you. Minimum of 4 struts and 4 joints need to be marked. Minimum of 4 struts. So once all the placement is correct on the AP, you can move ahead to the lateral view. Here, identification of strut 1 is important. So the most frontal strut is 1. Now, because this is a photograph, we are not able to see that X-ray marker with the 3 thin lines. But we are able to identify the nearby struts. So strut 2 is clearly visible, 2 thin and 1 thick. The strut which is adjoining that at that connector is strut 1. So identify that, place it with Strut 2. Strut 3, and then not able to see strut 4 here. Some parts are visible. We can mark it, or you can choose to skip it. So only 3 struts are marked. You can't really move forward yet. So you need to mark at least one more. The moment I click on strut 4, the upper button calculate frame turns active. But we should be giving more information as much as possible to the software to minimize these errors. So place strut number 5. Again, the upper joint is not seen, the lower joint is not seen. Strut 6 is seen there in between the mobile joint of strut 6 is not seen, so mark it with the arrow. Then you click on calculate frame.
The software is now checking all the data, is giving projections of those struts. These orange lines should be now lying well centered on the struts that you have marked. There may be slight errors in marking, magnification, or if you have made any errors in your measurements, all of them will show up here with the lines not lying on the struts. If the lines are not lying on the struts, if they're completely off, it is not acceptable. If they're slightly off, like here in this joint, then we can accept it and move forward. In the bone annotation step, first thing is to do is draw the mobile segment. Start from the osteotomy. You can keep clicking and moving forward. Mark it on the borders. One need not mark the whole fragment. Same thing on the lateral. Mark it more or less on the borders. This is just a projection of what your mobile fragment is. Then click on draw bone axis. Here, one can choose either a joint line or a shaft line. Because this is a mid-shaft deformity, we'll be choosing the shaft lines. So one essentially needs to tell the software what is the proximal axis, what is the distal axis, and the intersection of that would be the Cora point for the software. One can drag these ends and increase the length of that tree. The red point there marks the bone dissection end, which is the osteotomy. use those ends to place it accurately. Once it's placed on the border, zoom in and fine tune, and a central line is automatically joined, which now becomes the green is the proximal axis. Move the red point to the osteotomy. Mark the mobile axis. If you hold the center red point and drag, then it drags the whole tree onto the bone. Fine tune with placing those end points on the cortex. And bring the red point at the osteotomy. Go on to the lateral, do the same thing. The proximal axis. Get the osteotomy marked. The distal axis. Place it on the cortex. Now notice the osteotomy. When you move it in one view, it's also moving on the other view. So you can place the osteotomy marker accurately in wherever you're seeing it better, in whichever view of the X-ray. Once you have done that, then it gives you the angles between the axes. So on the AP, it is showing a valgus angle of 24. And on the lateral, it's showing that procurvatum of 35 degrees. Essentially, this is the oblique plane deformity. So instead of the oblique plane graphic method, now we have used the 6-axis to correct those both deformities, the oblique plane deformity. Now we need to mark the structure at risk. Structure at risk is basically we need to tell the software that particular point where the movement should not be more than 1 millimeter per day. So in Elizaro terms, you want that to be at the regenerate on the concave side. So that orange crosshair, you shift, drag and shift to the most concave on AP and lateral. And now the upper point turns green. You can move forward if it. Now this structure at risk optional is that 4th point there. If at some occasion for like a proximal tibia valgus deformity where the neurovascular structure is close by and you want another structure at risk marked, then you can choose that. But that is optional. At the mid-shaft deformity, we don't need to mark that. So we will move ahead. Click forward and the software is now showing you this blue contour, which is the projected correction depending on how you have marked the axis. If you agree with the correction, then you can go ahead. But if you need to do any modifications, you can use these arrows and numbers there to modify it. So in the previous step, we had checked the angles were 24 and 35. The translation is calculated by the software because the intersection point or the cora is slightly below the osteotomy. So this translation is acceptable because according to the osteotomy rule number 2. Now you can see that blue contour is sort of clashing with the proximal fragment there. So now we can lengthen that over here to avoid that clash. So check in both views where you can avoid the clash. In the lateral, now it is okay. For safety, we'll add a couple of mm more. You can always compress it later if required as a residual step. This is the point where you can add any rotational correction if required. If not, then just move ahead with the next step, which is creating the schedule for the whole program. So first step is to add the starting date when you want to start the distraction from. So we'll add today's date. Then it tells us the bone movement 1 millimeter per day. You can reduce this or increase this according to what you desire, but generally 1 millimeter per day is what we choose. You can have it break the whole distraction into 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 parts, depending on what you choose. So as per convention, we go ahead with 4 steps. And it gives you this total number of days of correction which would be required. This is 29 days in this case. Now it is also giving these red pointers, minimum limit, maximum limit. It's pointing out these 5 struts which would need some change, and they will at some point in the whole schedule. So how to do all that changes is what we will discuss again later in the next workshop or in the actual workshop. We'll also upload some videos on how to manage this at the beginning itself, or when you encounter this in the middle of the distraction. All that needs a little bit more time and description, so we will share that with you. But essentially, this is how the schedule can then be followed every day and break the distraction into 4 parts and go ahead with that. Thank you. You can now take any questions on.
So this much, I think this recording we will be sharing with everyone on the WhatsApp group. Those of you who are not on the WhatsApp group, please join the WhatsApp group. Also, Dr. Manish Prasad and Ravi Chauhan will share it in whatever are the other groups. So what I would suggest is, first of all, of course, if any questions right now, questions are welcome, so we can, yes, Dr. Reddy, Vijay Kumar Reddy.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Morning.
Yeah, I have one question, sir. During the correction step, how do you do correction deformity, sir, for internal rotation, for how to do external rotation and internal rotation in the right limb and lower limb? How to adjust that?
Okay, Divya, can you just pull up that screen of the correction? So basically, remember what we told you. You have to look at the patient. Okay. Which limb did you say? Right limb or left? You said which limb?
In both the limbs, sir. How to do rotation?
Give me one choice.
Right limb, sir.
Right limb and what correction?
External rotation. I need external rotation correction in the right limb.
Okay. So now when you're looking at the patient in the right limb, you want to give it what? External rotation.
Yes, sir.
Or you, huh?
Yes, sir. I need external rotation.
Yes. So now just look in front of you, and that right leg, in which direction it will move? This direction. So Divya, just point out to the arrows. Which arrow will move? Yeah, that one. Okay. And if the right leg, if you wanted to do internal rotation, then it would be the other arrow. Are you able to see that? Let me just let me pin myself one sec. It's like this. If you are looking at me, you have to just look at which direction you want to turn the foot. Right? So let's say I am looking at the patient. You can see my hand. This is the foot. So this is the patient's right foot. This is the patient's left foot. So if I want external rotation in the right foot, I will use this arrow. Same thing for internal rotation in the left foot. You can see external rotation of the right foot and internal rotation of the left foot are exactly the same as far as the software is concerned. So you click the arrow pointing to the left and fill in the number which is there. You can see? Is that clear, Dr. Reddy? Yeah, clear. We are actually, when we made this video, then we realized that, okay, we have some clinical cases where we've added rotation. We will make another video for how to add rotation, and we will share that as part of the group. Any other question?
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Sir, Rahul sir,
Yes.
not really a question on the software and hardware. Just wanted to request you that at the end of the presentation, sir, if we can deliberate upon what all things we are expecting the delegates to have with them, so that they can, sir.
Yeah, I will do that
Yes, sir.
right away, because we are practically at the end. So now these pictures which we just had, which you saw Dr. Divya planning on, the AP and the lateral pictures of the model and that sheet of the measurement, we will share that with you on the WhatsApp group, or Manish or Ravi will send it to you on the other WhatsApp group.
Yes, sir.
So what Mr. Khurana from Pitkar will have already shared your username and password for DeftFix.com.
Yes, it has been received and it has been sent on the WhatsApp.
Yeah. So what you should do is, at home only, before you come for the workshop, log in to DeftFix.com with the username and password. Use the Chrome or Firefox browser. Whether you use a Mac or a Windows, it doesn't make a difference. And then, exactly as we did, create a new case, upload the AP picture, the lateral picture, fill in the measurements that we showed you. If you have a problem, you can always refer back to the recording of this workshop. In another couple of hours, once the Zoom meeting is over, we will upload it and send you the link. Right? So just see it if you have problems and try to fix it. If not, put the question on the WhatsApp group even before the workshop, and we will try and answer that. Okay. So even if you're not going to do that, try to see that recording. I think if you do it before the workshop, nothing like it. Now, for those of you who are using it for clinical cases already, you should join the Telegram group which we have. We've got a Telegram group called DeftFix Users. That also we will share on the WhatsApp group. And then you should share that case to deftfix.problems@gmail.com. So then we can look at what the issue is on our computers and try and solve it for you. But basically, if your orange lines are not matching, 100% you have made a mistake in the counting. And even then we can work you through it, but you should check your numbers. There is no problem with the software wherein it will, your numbers are right and the software is misbehaving and not creating the correct orange lines. If the orange lines are not matching, check your numbers for sure. That's the only reason why the orange lines are not matching. Now for the actual workshop, get your laptop, your charger. If you can get a mouse, wonderful, because the trackpad gives occasional problems. We are going to do this entire exercise again at the beginning of the workshop. But hopefully, once you all have seen the recording, we should be able to go through it quicker, so that then you can work on more cases. In the actual workshop, we will show you now. You notice Divya showed some struts which need adjusting. We are running out of length. So we will show you how to adjust those strut lengths during actual distraction. We'll show you again how to add rotation to the correction. And we showed you right now only the mid diaphysial line to calculate the angle. But when it's a proximal or a distal thing where you can't see enough of the shaft, we'll show you how to use joint line angle. And then we'll show you how to work with actual X-rays. We'll give you a couple of X-rays which you can work with. For 10 days after the workshop, you will still have access using that username and password. So we will be sharing some model pictures. We will be sharing some X-ray pictures, and you can plan the correction for those, and share it if required if you have any problems. So I think that basically is the things that we wanted to tell you. Yes, somebody has raised his hand over there. Gupta Tejasvi.
No, Dr. Somnath here.
Yes.
Sir, will you be showing even the foot, any foot deformities also?
No.
Okay.
The foot is actually, it's more a little, it's nothing big, but we can't show you everything in one day. So we won't be showing you foot. We may add one of our cases, foot correction, as a recording, just like what we showed, what we are going to show you now. You can have a look at that. But have you used the DeftFix?
No, sir.
Yeah. So then don't forget about foot. Till you start using it for sort of angular deformities in the diaphysis, it's not a good idea to use it for the foot, because you will land up into trouble. In the sense, foot is kind of the next level of that. So once you are comfortable with the software, putting on the struts, etc., then certainly you can use it for the foot. And we will put up videos to illustrate or to teach how to put it up for the foot. But as a word of caution, I would say don't try to do the foot until you have used it for at least 3-4 cases of the diaphysis.
Okay.
Because it doesn't add anything specific, meaning it just applies your regular principles of Elizarov. Maybe it makes it a little easier. Okay. So if there's no other burning issues, I think we can stop the webinar now, and we'll send you the recordings on the WhatsApp group that I have made, and also via Manish and
Yes,
Ravi. Okay, Manish, Ravi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. So see you on 17th.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks.